Hey, it's the First Layer. Welcome to our Saturday Night Ask for Help. I'm Richard. That guy over there, that's Brian. You know him.
Hey, everybody. Oh, yeah.
He's with us most Saturday nights.
Most.
Most.
Oh. We're starting with.
That was a little dig. But anyway,
Such as the
I
way.
can do that.
Happy Saturday.
There we go. Just wait till I get you to do a Saturday by yourself.
I have done them, and there's a reason we don't do them anymore. Okay?
Alrighty, so let's say hello to some people that are sitting in our chat tonight. We have Joseph Jolly all the way, where is he from? Orlando, Florida. We got Robert 954 from Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
Oh, wow.
There's Mike Hunt from Down Under. And then we've got, of course, Mark L. Baker, who is right here in the fabulous city of Calgary. Who else we got here? We got MW3D Printing Newbie, Milan. And then we've got Mark Thibodeau, Rex Waldy from Medicine Hat, right here in our own province. Who else we got here? Guy the Jedi, Jason Peters from PA. Guy the Jedi, by the way, is from Northeast Ohio. Just like my last name, Cleveland, Ohio.
Ohio.
Oh, there we go. John Larrabee from Mississippi, Corey Mack from California, Peter Reynolds right here in Calgary. We got TSWG, the Rocket Program from Texas, Trevor Rickert, Dan Adams, Steve D from Michigan, and John Kitchen. And, Dan Adams is also from Michigan, and John Kitchen's from Florida. Wow, Florida. Didn't you guys just have like a hurricane or something down there?
Always, right? It's that time of year. So up here, all we have is smoke right now. So even though it's nice and bright in this room, I just got some new lighting, obviously. And then if you're seeing something different with my camera, I'm having a technical fault. So I've fallen back to the C920 camera, which, as you can see, is actually a pretty good camera. It's just not my fancy camera. So, I'm just soaking in all this light right now. I suppose I can show it to you guys. I've just installed under kitchen lighting up here. So it's kind of hacky, and then we got a nice little ring light down here filling. And this is just sitting on the teleprompter screen right now. So
there you go.
Lovely fanciness.
Well, tonight we've got a few questions that came in through email. We are going to have questions from our audience here tonight. And we're going to talk a little bit about some BIQU build plates that were sent to us a while ago, and I've been testing them on my various printers. And our last episode, we got a question about it. So I'm going to cover those tonight because it's not a product we can do a full video on. So what we're going to try and do over the next little while is any of those little tips and tricks that we have for you, things like that, anything that's a product that we can't cover in a regular video, we're going to start doing on our Saturday night, just to kind of break things up a little bit, and you guys will be able to see it right away. So we got sausage in the house. There we go.
Yeah, so the story about the haircut is I went to the barber's and asked to keep it long on top. Welcome to barbershops, for those of you who don't go to very often. I did just style it up tonight because I felt like it. This is going to be a coming back look, but when you're in a rush sometimes, you just can't do the style. So
there you go.
Hopefully this is a good look. You'll be seeing this more in an upcoming video that I've been shooting outdoors, very hacky put together, but I think you guys will like the video.
Holy buffering, Steve D says. Well, you shouldn't be buffering because I've got an excellent connection to the internet.
I have the stream over here. If you're wondering why I keep looking to the side, I also have the chat here. So I am keeping an eye on it. I'll let you guys know if it's crashing. But Steve, I would just refresh the page. Maybe it's just the CDN you're stuck on with YouTube.
That could be.
Welcome to the wonderful world of the internet, where it's way more complex than we could have ever imagined, right?
Yeah, you bet. So let's dive in.
Stick with three-dimensional machines here.
Let's dive in. Before we talk about products tonight, let's dive in and talk about our first question tonight. It's from Rob Nisters, and Rob Nisters has a real problem. He's got several questions here. To put it into context, he's got a CR-10S V2. He's put a new board into it, put a new screen onto it. He's gotten some upgrades for it as well. He's been back and forth with Creality. The biggest problem that he's having right now is with baud rate connecting to the screen and connecting to the board. Apparently what's happening is every time that he tries to send G-code down his USB cable, which is something I don't recommend. I suggest that you put it on your card, put your card into your printer, and go that route. But the first one here is there a G-code command to query for the baud rate of a touchscreen or to set the baud rate? No, there is not, as far as I know. Brian, do you know of anything different?
It depends on the touch screen. Now, if you've upgraded the firmware, especially on the big Tree Tech ones, on the TFT 35s and the various versions, they sometimes have a setting right on the screen to detect the baud rate. However, bear in mind that baud rate, it's synchronous. So the protocol for UART stands for Universal Asynchronous Send or Receive something or other. I'm a little rusty on it. Receive, transmit or something. The speed has to be the same. It's just that they're not synchronized. So if your screen is set for 250K baud and your printer is set for 128K, for instance, they're just not going to line up ever, and it's going to get gibberish. And that's when you see the no printer attached. Now, I can safely say for your screens, they're either going to be set at 115200 baud or 250000. Now, there is some G-codes in the newest versions of Marlin that allow you to change your printer's baud on the fly, but I would say just try and figure out exactly which one your screen is using and make sure they're synchronized before you start diagnosing other wiring issues.
I think what he's got, based on the email here, he's got a 3.2 touchscreen, a color touchscreen, so it sounds like it is the one from MakerBase.
Okay.
That one, actually, I know because I've used it in the past, and I have a couple here, actually. That one is set to 115200 baud rate, and your board is set to 9600. So what you're going to have to do is either lower the baud rate on the screen or increase the baud rate on the board so they're communicating back and forth. Now, how do you do that? On the screen itself, there should be firmware available through the manufacturer's website. You put it onto an SD card, you plug that SD card into the side of the screen, and it will allow you to change at that point the baud rate so that you can communicate properly. And I had that problem when I was using MakerBase products in the past too, so I know exactly what's going on there.
Just make sure to set it higher than lower because 9600 baud is far too slow to stream G-code. So if you start doing that, you're going to be seeing a lot of jittering, and it's quite literally bits per second. When we talk about baud rate, it's how many bits you can transmit over that serial per second. Now, the only reason you ever want to go for a lower baud rate is if you're running an extremely long cable and you're losing bits along the transmission. Yep. So make sure at least 115200. I think Marlin by default is set to 250K baud now, which is a fine number. You can, I believe, with these chips go as high as 1 million baud, but then you're going to start having packet loss, and really you don't need to stream the data that fast. There
you go. So that actually answers both questions, 1 and 2, because he was asking about, so we got 1 and 2. And on the third question, and I'm not going to go into the rest of them because the rest of them kind of don't really mean much, but the third question, on which side do I embed the magnets, upper or underside? Underside will give me more adhesion with flex plates, but may use unevenness on top. It will definitely use the unevenness on top, but you always want to mount your magnets to the bottom of your plate. So not to the plate itself, not to one of these, but if you're putting on, and it sounds like he's going to put on a brand new machine to bed for his printer, you want to mount those up underneath. If you can have them dug out so that the magnets fit flush in there on the bottom, you will have really good adhesion. It will come through. And you want to use rare earth magnets or neodymium magnets. so that they can actually transmit their force through the aluminum. And you're going to have to glue them in. So the rest of the questions, I'm going to send him an email on.
Sounds good. Yeah, just be careful with magnets. The neodymiums are quite strong, and it will get you a flat surface. Now, when it comes to the flexible sheets that Rich will be talking a bit about tonight, a lot of them, what we've found over time is that the magnetic sheet that ships with them is inferior even on the most expensive ones. And as you add heat, it does change the magnetic properties a little bit. And in the case of the flex sheet that I have on my CR-10S V, which is 510 mil by 510 mil, there are some places where it's lifting even though the magnetic properties are there. So just something to keep in mind with your magnetic sheets, that it might be worth that little extra money to find a local shop and get a thicker, stronger magnetic sheet versus what it comes with.
There you go. Next question is from Charles Perkins. He says, hello, I'm Charles Perkins. Hi, Charles Perkins. And I'm new to 3D printing, and honestly, I'm not that computer savvy. I have a CR-10S, and I followed everything from y'all's YouTube videos on Marlin 2.0 and the one about the BL Touch, but I keep getting this error. Like I said, I'm not computer savvy, so I have no clue what to do and how to do it. If you can help me with this issue, I would greatly appreciate it. Hope to hear from you soon, and thanks for your time. Well, this is why we do this show. It's not to make us any smarter. It's to help you get smarter and better at 3D printing and understanding the mechanics of 3D printing. And that's what the show is all about, including our weekly show on Wednesdays. So he's using the library U8GLIB at version 1.19.1 in folder, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to go all into that. His error is for compiling board Mega or Mega 2560. Now, the problem that he's having here, I think, is that library now is an old library. There is more of a universal library that has been put out now. And if you're going to use 2.0, don't use Marlin to compile it. Use Visual Studio Code. Brian's the master at Visual Studio Code. I am not, but there is a real... What's that?
I was going to say, even that, I have my own struggles with it. Now, he said he was working with 1.1.9.1, which was a recently released bug fix for the old version of Marlin, which I guess it means he's using the Arduino IDE. Nothing wrong with that, honestly.
He's trying to use the UAG library.
Right. So UAG library has been updated, I believe, a few times since the last version of Marlin, excluding this bug fix. So there may be incompatibilities with the Arduino compiler itself. I just don't want to rule that out entirely. Now, Visual Studio Code, I can understand for a lot of people, may feel a little intimidating at first because there's a lot of options in there. However, we're now starting to see lots of videos come out about setting up Visual Studio Code, setting up Platform IO, which is basically the Arduino builder in the back end if we want to simplify things. And once you've gotten that basic setup going, it's just a simple matter of pressing a couple buttons to build, upload, all within one suite. And I've actually noticed recently Platform IO itself has changed a little bit to make it even easier. So let me know in the comments if you'd like a quick breakdown about starting up Visual Studio Code for the first time, and we can maybe put that on our roster here.
There we go. And if you do get something out of tonight's presentation or our answers to your questions, please feel free to use that $sign down at the bottom. That's called Super Chat. And that helps us out to keep bringing you guys content every week, twice a week, every Wednesday and Saturday night. Okay, so we got TSWG, the rocket program. He says, my CR10 is not reading files sliced on the new Cura.
Okay, I'd like to know where it's failing.
Yeah.
That would be my first question. Where does it fail? Is it actually executing some of the code? Like, is it starting a warm-up? Or is it not even being seen by the printer? Because usually when I see an issue with the printer not reading a G-code file or not doing it correctly, it's usually a slight corruption of the SD card. So I would recommend, before you try it again, go into Windows, Mac OS, whatever operating system you use, and format that card. You don't have to do a deep level format, but do a format just to clear out everything on the card. Then reslice your file, put the G code on the drive so it's the sole file on there, and start it up. If it's still not working at that stage, I would like to take a look at that G code file myself, because usually within the first 10 lines, we're going to see something funny. And I know there was a bug with Cura 4.7 with messing up G code that has been fixed in the 4.0.7.1. So I'd recommend rolling up to that version too.
There you go. And I would agree with that. I think that at the end of the day, anytime I've had any issues with it not even seeing the card, you put the card in and the card's not even being seen, it's usually a corruption of the card. So try a brand new card. Don't try an old card that you have. Try a brand new card. They're not that expensive to buy. I mean, you can get 16 gigs for like $5 now. So if you can, please try and use a new card. Mike Kirk Jr. Hey, I'm late to the party. Oops. Well, that'll cost you $10. That's our door fee now. We're going to have a bouncer at the door.
Yeah, there you go.
I want to monitor 2 printers. I'm looking into the Spaghetti Detective or live stream, or for live stream controls, etc. I've got Printoid, but it's kind of a pain to set up. Any recommendations? Yes, I would recommend you going to what is that one that we always recommend? You know the one.
Octoprint?
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah.
Because you can run more than one instance on Octoprint. You can handle more than one camera. You can handle more than one printer on Octoprint.
Now, this spaghetti thing is pretty cool. Don't get me wrong, but what you have to understand about these plugins is that something like Spaghetti Infill is taking a camera feed, such as what you're seeing from my 920 here, and it's evaluating every picture and saying, does something look a little funny? It's trying to go sort of like that AI neural network stuff you've been seeing about faking images or doing object detection. It's looking for certain odd patterns of weird filament on your camera to determine if a break has happened. Now, that's not light on processing power. That takes a lot of horsepower.
Yep.
And so if your goal is to run this on 2 printers, I would highly recommend have a separate Raspberry Pi, at least a 4, with probably, well, I think they come with a gig of RAM by minimum now.
Yeah.
At least a Raspberry Pi 4 for each of them, running their own separate instances. I'm not going to say it won't work on one. I've never tried it. In fact, I've moved away from Octoprint for quite a while. I'm looking at just getting back into it now. But the more overhead you can have, the better your print's going to run, because at the end of the day, the primary focus of your printing is to make sure the print comes out smoothly, and have that scheduler focus on that and not on other detection systems.
Yeah, that would be the best way to go for sure. Benny Brady says, y'all be sure to smash that like button. Absolutely, smash that like button if you get something out of tonight.
Just smash it.
Jason Peters would like to hear more about Visual Studio. It is a pain in the you-know-what. Yes, Visual Studio Code can be a pain. I think we're going to do a video on that very soon, right, Brian?
Absolutely.
Just on how to set it up properly.
My main focus to tell you guys in advance, it's more that it's intimidating. Once you've, and it is written by coders, because it's designed to handle Python, .NET, VBA, every language in the book. It's a very open-ended platform. So there are some uncomfortable things. Now, I think if you guys haven't seen my video in the past on the Easy Build Marlin plugin, there's actually some easier methods coming in just to make it easier. But once I consider it valuable knowledge to understand things like what processor is on your board, what are its limitations, and then once you've understood that, Visual Studio, you're going down, you select your processor, your ATmega 2560, your LPC 1769, or your STM32F103RC_bigtree_USB. I mean, there's a lot of boards in there, but once you've got that, your options are build, upload, monitor, test, and it does it all for you. It even downloads your libraries now for you, so you no longer have to do that U8glib thing. You no longer have to do that Sanguino. So we'll go into that a little more in depth in the near future here. Ben saying Marlin Auto Build sucks. Yeah, last time I checked, it wasn't great, but it might be
Yeah.
better now. They're
No, it
always
still
updating it.
sucks.
So.
It still sucks. I tried using
It's
it
not
the
the
other
best.
day. It still sucks.
Okay, okay. Well, I tried.
There you go. Mike Kirk says he forgot to mention monitor remotely. Yes, you'll be able to do that once you've got your AstroPrint or Octoprint set up. I like AstroPrint because it is a paid service when you get over and above a certain amount of printers, but it is really good to use. Speaking of,
It has a better cloud integration. That's
yeah,
the biggest thing. So you can log in on from your phone and not have to know your VPN details and everything. Octoprint, you can do it, just takes a few extra steps.
yeah, you bet. Now, here was a great question because somebody was asking about the Creality camera, and that was MW3D Printing newbie Milan. He says, "Have either of you tried the Creality camera?" Absolutely, we've got one here in our studio that we use quite often, actually, and I use it when I'm running prints, and I can monitor it on my phone and so on and so forth. So, yes, it works. It works very well. The API for the app is a little clunky. They're still working it out. It's not completely in English, so be aware of that. Does it work with the Wi-Fi from Creality? That I don't know. I would imagine it does, because Creality's Wi-Fi box is designed to work with all of Creality's products in sort of a roundabout way. So if the Wi-Fi box is just an extender, then it should work just fine.
Yeah, I've kind of seen this popped up a couple times. So I'm actually just looking at Creality's article right now about the Wi-Fi box. My understanding is it's kind of like a different way of setting up Octoprint. The
Yep.
UI is customized for them, but what it's purely designed for is it manages two cameras. It has a network port and it has an SD card port, so that you can go and feed files and stream it the same way that Octoprint or AstroPrint would. If you already have the box, that's awesome. If you're looking into getting into Wi-Fi printing, to be honest, I mean, at $20 US, it's not that expensive.
No.
A Raspberry Pi will cost you at least double that to get everything configured. So,
Yeah.
if your sole goal is simply to have wireless access to your printers, if you don't need cameras or anything, it looks like a fairly good option. Now, we've known in the past Creality's been great at kind of discontinuing products and support for these sort of things. So that's the only thing I'd be wary for. But if you're a non-technical person, if you don't want to hop into the Raspberry Pi realm, this doesn't look like that bad of an option.
So a question we got here from Peter Reynolds, who is in our chat tonight. He says, I have a question about how to scale a multi-piece print in Cura. He says, I'm printing a project that has multiple pieces that can't be all printed at the same time. I changed the size of one of the pieces. Now the others don't fit. Well, that's because you didn't change them all. And I'm going to show you how to do that. Mm-hmm. So what we've got, and I'm just going to bring this over to this screen so you can see that. We'll just head over there. Let me just change this. I got to change this. Yes. Not position. I need to go to general. There we go. You ever have one of those days?
Yeah, well, for those of you who don't know, the reason we're on this camera right now is my computer. I finally got caught up to Windows version 2004, which is the April 2020 update. Then it updated and froze and never booted. Then it rolled back all the changes, and now my DeckLink card isn't even showing up whatsoever in Device Manager. So I don't know. I had to fling everything together at the last minute. So hopefully this is good enough for you guys tonight.
All right, so I'm going to load up my CR-10 here, and we are going to show you exactly what you've got to do, Peter. And I have a wonderful model here from our good friend Gusang Kwan from fab365.net. Let's just switch over to this camera. And Brian, your audio is back on. So we're going to move this onto the build plate. So you've got all of these things on your build plate. And if you only have one of them highlighted and you go over to scale them up or down, only that one thing is going to scale up. But if you grab all of them And you can just hold down the shift key and you can grab them all if you want. So we've got them. Once they've all got a blue highlight around them, you can also go up to edit and select all models, or Control A will also do that for you. Now, when you've got them like this, if you want to upscale them and let's say we want to go to 150%, tab over. Now, all of them have gone to 150%, and you can see that they don't fit on the CR10. So we're going to just take this piece and we're going to move it. No, we want to move you. Thank you.
You're stuck in scaling mode.
Yeah, I'm stuck in. That's why I'm stuck in scaling mode. So we're gonna just move that off, and maybe we'll just delete it because it's a little bit too big for our bed. So I'm gonna come back again, Control A, selecting everything, and I just want to arrange all of my models now so that they print a little nicer. And you can see now I've got two parts of the wings here that just don't want to fit in. So I'm just going to move them around just a little bit so that they fit into my build volume.
Just to talk about alignment while we're here is that with Cura, it will attempt to space everything out with fixed widths, and I haven't really looked for the setting, but sometimes it will arrange it and still have objects outside the bed, which is why Richard was able to pull it in and Cura didn't say, hey, why did you decide to do that? Now, the other thing with arranging is it will not rotate objects. So if you feel that your part can fit on the bed and it's just the auto arrange is not working, just be sure to use the rotate tool and rotate it around a little bit. Now, as well, if you are working on multiple projects or multiple print jobs, I always recommend keep some paper around your desk. I've got notebooks here, I've got Post-it notes. And when you start that first print job, before you close up Cura or start deleting things, write down your scale percentage. And that will ensure that all your parts, whenever stage you decide to print them, they'll all fit. And if you're forgetful, like I tend to be, maybe even consider adding the percentage into your file name for your G-code file on the SD card. And
write it down.
Good practice. Write it down. Put it on your G-code file so you have something to go back on, because trust me, I've had to measure a piece and try to determine what the scaler is after the fact. It's not fun.
My file name.
My wife says she puts it in the file name, and that's a great way to do it. Now, the next thing that we've got to show you before we get into some of the questions that are going to start popping up here is, let me just go to this camera, and this is the flex plates from BIQU. BIQU sent these out to us to try out. They sent out one for the CR-10 and one for the Ender 3. You can see that I've been using these quite a lot and I haven't cleaned them. And both sides are the exact same. There's not one that is without texture, so they both have texture. The beautiful thing is on these, you can use any type of material, and the ones that they recommend are PLA, ABS, TPU, and the one that a lot of us have problems with, PETG. And I can confirm that PETG works very well on these surfaces because I've used it. No glue stick, no hairspray, no form of any type of adhesion. You just basically, it was right on there, and they worked out great. This one here, actually, you can see some circles that are still on there because I was a little close to the bed here as well. And these, I did all the rocket parts on our PETG rockets on this particular flex plate. So now the beautiful thing about them is they're super flexible. Like, they're super flexible. And they hold their shape. They are done with a good quality spring steel. They will withstand 200 degrees Celsius, which is another great thing. So if you guys are interested in getting these types of beds, I use clips to hold mine down. They did send me a magnet for the big one for my CR-10, and to be perfectly honest, the magnet's not that strong, so I still use clips on it. Now, if you've got a warped bed, you know what? This is going to conform to that bed a little bit. where you put it down, when you clamp it down on the corners, it's going to stay relatively flat. I haven't had any real problems with either one of these. They've held the prints just fine. So if you are looking for them, I believe you can get them on BIQU's site let me just go up here and I will double check for you what the price is. Currently, the smaller one here is selling for $31.89 on BIQU's website, and the larger one is selling for $38.74, and those are U.S. prices.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a really good price, because I paid over $100 Canadian for my spring steel sheets.
Yeah, so those are really good prices. If you want to get them, go to BIQU's website, and that's BIQU Equipment or BIQU.equipment, and just check out under their products. You'll find these, and I got to tell you, I'm really impressed by them. The coating on them is really durable. It sticks to just about anything. It doesn't overstick, and I got to tell you, it is really easy to use. Normally, I don't go for these kinds of things. You guys know me, I'm a glass and glue stick guy, but this particular spring steel sheet is kind of changing my mind, to be perfectly honest with you. It's kind of changing my mind.
I was going to say, while we were chatting there, thank you, Peter Reynolds, for the $20 Canadian. Let's see if we got the button
Super
working.
chat.
Woo! Yeah, it's okay. She's working.
She's working. Got to blow everybody out of the water when we do that. Thank you very much, Mr. Reynolds. We do appreciate it.
I appreciate it for sure. I wanted to address an awesome comment in the chat here from Dominic
Sure.
Rossetto. I don't know why I never thought of it before, but I tried using 3D resin to weld parts together using a handheld UV light. It works, of course. So this here is a piece of Jess's suit that she's been working on, and a lot of the foam up here was actually welded in with 3D resin. Now I bought one of the little pens and it worked, but they come with so little resin. And I ended up dipping, just going and taking some of my UV curable resin from my printer, swiping it in there and putting some UV light, and it works. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because many times if we're going and working with a little miniature model, let's say if you accidentally break off a sword when removing the supports there, it happens to all of us. And what I do is if the piece is broken off, I just take that tiny piece and I dip it in the resin, hold the piece together, and I run outside. And within a couple moments, it's welded, and it looks like it was the original part because you're welding the same material on itself. So if you're ever, thinking about it, this is why you got to be careful, because that stuff will cure and bind to everything. So as long as you're safe, I'm going to tell you to wear your gloves, wear your goggles, and all that. Don't be stupid like me, but it is an amazing welding adhesive. Just be careful and know what you're working with.
So, just taking a look here, Ben Brady, he says they do self-release, he says.
Do they? Yes. Yeah, the prints, did your prints fall right off the spring steel sheet?
Yeah, pretty much. Once this cooled down, it just basically, I could lift it right off. I didn't even have to take the sheet off and do this. It just lifted right off.
I find if you need to flex the plate, usually it's because your first layer is a little too close to it.
Yeah.
And of course, with anything like that, the hope is that you're not taking off any of that PEI on there. That's why we call the show the first layer, is because if you get that first layer right, you're just going to have a stellar time with the print, and it will just fall off the head. In fact, you can get back into those fun plugins that use the hot end to knock the part off the print or off the machine.
Dan Adams says, I use the TH3D Flex Steel sheet. We had it. For us, it wasn't the greatest. So for, we used it. It was fine. It was, to me, it was nothing to write home about, but they do make a good product. And it's a typical product you're going to find at a lot of places. Not just TH3D has that same plate. I know Spool 3D here in Calgary has that exact same plate. There's a lot of Chinese companies that have that exact same plate as well. Joseph Jolly says, I use the Wham Bam on my CR-10S Pro. I've reached out to Wham Bam and they've never gotten back to me. Maybe they don't like Canadians. I don't know.
I don't know. I've got their new one, the one for resin, and I still haven't had a moment to put it on my machine. So I'm hoping to check it out. I think it was Uncle Jesse did a great video on it, and couldn't believe how well it worked. But at the end, I think the Wham Bam, it just has a better quality magnet. Remember, at the end of the day, all these are is they're a thin sheet of steel that's flexible, that is then it's either serrated or flat, and it's coated with this layer of PEI plastic. Now, PEI has an extremely high melting point, and it does very well for binding some of the materials like PETG and so forth. You got to make sure to clean your steel sheets quite well. And my trick lately has been to get a brand name degreasing soap, such as Dawn or any of those other ones, something that's really known for degreasing. You want to get in there with that, some water, and a good brand paper towel, not something that will dissolve. Get in there and scrub your bed nice. Go in circular motions and move it around in ways that your nozzle wouldn't normally cross it. So if your nozzle is going back and forth, try going diagonal just to get in between all those ruts. Now, when all is said and done, sometimes I don't know about the longevity of it, so I don't recommend removing that soon clean bed and rinsing it under the sink. Just take another piece of paper towel with water, give it a quick wipe down, and then do a final pass with isopropyl alcohol. You don't need a lot on there, but it's just designed to make sure no residue is left from the soap. If you do that, you are going to be shocked at how well your material is going to stick. And sometimes it may, depending on how often you touch the bed, you may want to do it once every couple of print jobs. But you got to remember time investment here. It's worth the 15 minutes not to lose a 3 or 4 day print.
Yeah, exactly. And at the end of the day, do what you got to do. I'm gonna give these guys 5 out of 5 hot ends. Just because I really liked how they worked. They held on to all the rocket parts, and you guys know that the rocket behind me that you see here, this is all 3D printed, and it was printed using this sheet. So at the end of the day, I can tell you that it works well. At the price point, it's a no-brainer, to be perfectly honest with you.
I think build tack costs more than that now.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
And you know what? The thing is with the spring steel, and the reason I'm kind of getting into the cleaning and stuff, I will say this now because I'm going to say it every time. The warnings are real. Do not use acetone on the surface, because if basically when you wipe out all the PEI eventually on the sheet, you're going to have to toss it out. It's not something you can regenerate easily, and honestly, it should last the lifetime of the machine if you do treat it well, and basically don't scrub it away, or don't etch it away with acetone. But
Yeah.
the thing is with these spring steel sheets, we always used to get a bit nitty about flexible beds, and that's because they were plastic based flexible beds. They weren't like a steel sheet in there. And with the steel sheet, what we found is it does sit on the bed nicely. It matches all your bed conforms and everything, and which is nice because then your ABLs will be consistent print job to print job. And with the flexible sheets, you can, if you buy a couple of them, it's just as easy as pulling off one, putting the other one on the machine, starting the job. Or if you only have one, you bring out your part right away, go click, your parts pop off, and you're ready to go for the next print job.
Yeah, exactly. Sib Husky says glass beds are where it is at. I use glass beds all the time. I use mirrors more than glass. On the smaller ones, I use glass. And he says, I need that mirror finish. And if you need that mirror finish and you need that nice, clean, sexy, shiny finish, then definitely glass or mirror is the only way to go. But go ahead.
You say that, but let me show you guys something. Hang on one second.
Okay. I will talk while he's walking away. Oh, he's got a sheet here. There we go.
All right, so here is my energetic PEI sheet. Now, as you can see, it's textured. I've got a little bit of filament still on there that there you go, peels right off. It's nice and easy stuff to work with. The reason I like this flex sheet, and I didn't realize this when I was buying it, is if we flip it over, now we have a smooth PEI sheet on the underside. So it gives you both options. And now, if you want that mirror finish, this may be the route. The reason they put textured on it is because certain materials like PETG are very finicky when it comes to the surface they're on. And the best way to describe it is, let's say if you have, let's make a gross scenario here. You've got a tube of toothpaste, and you go to smear it on your kitchen floor. It's not going to stick to the floor. It's going to stick to the bottle as you drag it along. But if you go outside to your street where you've got rough gravel and you go across there, there's enough holes and pits that will clip onto that and break its surface tension and cause it to drag out of the nozzle instead of staying where it's at and curling on itself. And that's why these are textured, is it's all microscopic. It's small enough, I don't know if it's even focus, that you're basically, as your nozzle's going across, you're scraping the filament out. Mm-hmm. And the other benefit with that too is with all the pits and all that, they're still short enough that it doesn't impede the filament flow. And if you have a slightly misleveled bed, you can go closer and you can go a little further away than you would with a flat surface and still get away with bed adhesion. So if you have a slight imbalance or a little bump, I tend to find the spring steel sheets, the textured side, absorbs that a little bit better than a flat surface.
Now, the other benefit to using glass or mirror is that, especially with mirror, it's truly flat. It has to be truly flat. Otherwise, you get that funhouse look, so your face will stretch or look fatter than it is. And, you know, the camera adds 10 pounds already. But, yeah, glass is a great way to go. So if your bed's a little uneven, the glass is going to be a great great surface for that. These, on the other hand, if your bed is really messed up, this is going to somewhat follow that surface. But there are ways around that. You can use capped-on tape to level out your bed, heat it up, put the capped-on tape on so you know where all of the highs and lows are. Or you can use an ABL, which I use with these, and the ABL works great. So, Sib, Husky, I just want to say that love your comments, but you just have to watch the language just a little bit, because we are we're family friendly. Even though we're not marketed to kids, we are family friendly. Okay.
I would love to use my natural cursive language here. Trust me, I would love to. I'll tell you what I think about your bloody printer.
Yeah, really. So somebody asked what the printer is behind you, by the way.
Oh, what's printing behind me there? You know what? To be honest with you, I don't even know, because Jess has been doing all this stuff. According to this, I know what's printing on this one. This one here is a Pelican from Halo, and we're printing a large-scale copy of it on the CR-10S. Now, that's mostly an unmodified 10S, apart from the fact it has a larger one of these energetic sheets. It has a BL Touch, and I think, yes, it does have an all-metal hot end on that one. Now, the other one behind me here, the Wanhao, which you may have recognized from the old first layer set here, we're doing some ABS printing, and right now we're printing a functional V8 engine for Jess's father's shop to show customers how an engine works on the inside. And we picked ABS because it's just a little bit more durable for that long-term operation.
And so it gets pretty warm in that shop.
Yeah, it does. Well, any kind of workshop. Remember, PLA, even though its melting point is, I believe the final transition was 130 Celsius that I saw. But remember, it starts to soften at 60 degrees. And that's why we set our bed to 60 degrees, is because the filament will soften and bind better to the small imperfections on that surface. You know, mirrors are great and all. It's just you don't see those micro imperfections that it can drag on and kind of seam into. And that's why if your bed is super smooth, nothing will adhere to it. So you always have to have that little bit of micro grit for it to bind to. And then you want to keep the bed heated as long as you can to make sure that it kind of pulls itself into those little grooves. Because if it does cool too quickly, then it's not going to have time to attach to all those little things on the surface. And that's when you get prints popping off your bed.
Yeah, exactly. Sib brings up a good point here. He says, have you guys heard about the fact that printing from Octoprint will yield lower quality prints than printing directly from the SD? It has to do with how data is streamed to the CPU. The SD is lower latency and just does a better job than the Octoprint. Yes, I have heard that, and I have tested that fact out for myself, and I do fully agree with you on that. I will never print anything from Octoprint. I always put it on the SD card, always put the SD card inside my machine, and I do get better quality prints. The other thing is that if you're using Octoprint and for some reason you haven't set up your Raspberry Pi or laptop computer or whatever you're using Octoprint on to not go into sleep mode, guess what? It's going to go into sleep mode. It's going to cut off that data transmission, and the print's just going to stop, and it's not going to know how to restart. So the idea behind those two, if you are going to use Octoprint, I only use it for really monitoring anyway. I don't really use it for anything else other than the monitoring if I'm going to use it. And because I've got that Creality camera, it makes life so much easier. Let me see if it actually is on. Maybe I can show you guys here. See if it's on, pointing at anything upstairs. It should come up here right away. It's connecting. Connect.
Welcome to all the speedy little features of these things. Now with Octoprint, while Richard's looking into this, what you have to understand is with the data streaming over serial, there is actually a setting within your Marlin build, and I'll see if I can pull it up here. There is a setting that will increase the buffer size on the printer for streaming data. And the reason you want this is because it's going to allow the printer to receive more commands from the serial buffer ahead of time and will cause your print job to stutter less. I won't say it's going to eliminate them entirely because with a lot of slicers, there's so many micro movements there that you basically saturate the planner even with the latest version of Marlin and all the hardware there. But if we look into, where is it here? Buffer, there's a setting. I always lose this setting, you know. I haven't touched this in such a long time, to be honest with you guys. So as a result, I can never figure out exactly where that planner is. RX buffer size, here we are. Okay. So if I quickly bring this up, there's monitor 2. I got too many monitors here. Let's zoom in on this here. View. Control plus equals. Well, that's a real useless keystroke there. Okay, so if we blow up the UI nice and big here, you can see there's this section under configuration advanced.h that defines the buffer size. And so it says if you have an SD card, set the buffer size to 16. Else define it as block buffer 16. Now what I like to do myself is I like to change this number to something much larger. And I like to do it in increments. So I would say start it with 32. If you start going to areas like 128 or 256, the only downside is if you do any command changes such as increase temperature, increase speed, do anything like that, it won't be processed until it's processed the other commands that have fully filled that buffer. So if you want to say, hey, my printer is printing a little too quickly, I'm noticing some stringing or I'm noticing some under extrusion, and I want to turn my speed back down. Even from the screen, if you turn it down, it's got to go through about 256 commands that were issued to it before it issues that change. There's no overrides in the ISR planner at this stage. So for most people, if you're doing Octoprint, set it to 64. And the way you can tell in Visual Studio Code that you've selected the correct one is that if, obviously you know if your SD card support is enabled, but if you don't, if you notice this block buffer size down here is slightly grayed out, it's a little darker. And that's Visual Studio Code telling you that this else is not going to run because this if statement is valid. And it says if enabled SD support, we can say, yeah, we have SD support enabled. And therefore it's going to build this. So if you are running Octoprint, I'll repeat it again, set it to at least 64 commands, and that will reduce your stutters significantly, especially with lots of small movements.
Okay, well, apparently I don't have the camera plugged in.
Oh.
I don't have
that would help.
Yeah, it usually does help.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, a lot of my printers, I know people, I think, have mentioned a couple security cameras there. I monitor them with Wise cameras. I got a Wise Cam pan set up right here, so I can actually pan and tilt and look at my other machines. But all around my property, I bought Wise Cams, and I just look at it from my phone during the day. I can't cancel jobs remotely, but I can see if something's messing up enough to call somebody and say, "Hey, just pull the plug on it" or something.
There you go. John just installed a micro Swiss all metal direct drive kit on the Ender 5 Pro. Problem: extruder is stripping the filament, and yes, I did run the G code from micro Swiss to adjust the E steps.
All right.
So like Ben did mention, did you adjust the tension? Because if there's too much tension, it's going to just grab that filament. It's just going to grind it away.
Now, the other side of that, too, is it still extruding? Because that sounds to me like a partial clog if it's grinding away at it. Now,
Yeah.
with direct drive, the nice thing about direct drive is that your filament pressure is occurring right at the nozzle, and so you have a lot more control over it. Now, the downside is when you have something like a Bowden tube set up, if you are getting a lot of back belt pressure, if your extruder is set to a regular / lower than average voltage, it's going to start clicking because it can't overcome that pressure. And if you have a really cheap Bowden tube, like many of us seem to have, the coupler will fail and the Bowden tube will pop out of your extruder assembly. Now, when you have direct drive, there's nowhere for that filament to go, and you can just keep torquing at it. So if your motor has great torque on it and you've got great grip, it's going to keep on trying to shove it into that hot end, and that hot end's going to say, nope, I can't take it. And so all it's going to do is shimmy back and forth. The motor gets warm, the filament gets warm, it softens up, and then the gears will start to slowly shear off the outside until you have two nice little points in there. And just from
Can't go
experience,
anywhere. Yeah.
drives, they are not fun to unclog because sometimes you have to take apart half the bloody assembly to do it. So yeah, just let us know if it is still flowing in there. If it is, great. It is just a torque issue. If it's not, I would just follow the steps again for reinstalling the nozzle properly. Make sure it's properly torqued and that there's no gaps in between your heat break and your nozzle, because usually that's where I found my clogs happen with direct drive.
That's usually where I found them happen too. Speaking of direct drive, we have a direct drive printer coming up this Wednesday. A first look at a brand new printer from a company, a small company. This is not a Kickstarter. And I know there's a lot of great things out there right now coming out on Kickstarters from the bigger companies. And we're going to talk a little bit about them. But we've got this printer that is about the size. It's a little bit bigger than an Ender 3, but not as big as a CR-10. And it is a direct drive machine. And I got to tell you, I've been printing with this thing, and the prints on it are amazing. I haven't had to do anything to it. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that. And I'm going to give you guys a rundown of it on Wednesday's show. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want you to watch Wednesday. That being said, we are just about out of time. We got about 8 minutes left. So if you do have a question, get it in now. Otherwise, we're going to miss it. Brian, what do you got coming up?
Well, I do have a question / comment to address in the chat, because this has been a little bit of an interesting scenario. And this is a general kind of a PSA / informative thing about Kickstarter, because since we're talking about Kickstarter. So as some of you may have seen, there have been some issues concerning the fulfillment of the Sunlu filler dryer. And I personally have one on back order. I was one of the earliest ones. I didn't get in on the flash sale, but I got in on the super early bird price. So they're having logistical issues. Honestly, if it was a startup, I might think that they were defrauding me, but knowing that Sunlu is an established company, it probably is just a hurdle. But what's happening right now is we're not getting our filler dryers quite yet. Meanwhile, there are some showing up in Amazon warehouses. What you have to understand about Kickstarter, and this goes back almost, I could go back, I think, almost 5 years to the project that I backed for one of the first 3D printers out there for, I think it was a resin machine, actually. Kickstarter, there is no guarantee you will get your actual order. So if we look back, I'll see if I can share my screen here. This was a story of the first 3D printer and scanner called the Peachy printer. So this project was a really cool concept about using an audio output of a computer to generate a laser to fly around basically. And I wonder if the site's still up. Oh, nope, it's gone. So what it was designed to print in resin, but at a scalable thing. So you could go and set up a bucket, and it would basically float upwards your resin layer and print every layer up. It was a pretty cool little concept. So they had functional prototypes. We backed the project, and then we heard nothing, and we heard nothing, and it over and over again, there were many delays. Now, this was a group of Canadian guys. It's only probably about 6 hours away from me. So, you expect a small group of these guys to not be kind of playing games. And what happened at the end of the day was, let's see, the police have yet to press charges, inventory video, and stuff like that. Uncut print demo, addressing your first questions concern big bad news. And what happened here was they put out a video to explain that they gave their money to one of their colleagues who took all the money and built a house, basically bought a house with it, and they mismanaged the funds and all that. And the fact is, there's nothing that we could do about it as people who used Kickstarter. The reason, they said, hey, if you want to contact the local police out here and say, hey, I was promised this and I've been defrauded, because even the company themselves had no way to go back on it because they didn't have their numbers set up properly. And at the end of the day, the problem is we gave them money and we got nothing out of it. So is it fraud? In this case, yes, it was. It was the company defrauding people, but that's not what Kickstarter is all about. And that's what I wanted to get at, is Kickstarter, at a fundamental core, if you're backing a product, you're actually not backing really a guaranteed pre-order. It's not a pre-order platform. What it is it's designed to say, hey, we are creating a campaign to produce this product, and we need X amount of money selected down here to achieve that goal. Now, the rewards are, hey, if you select this, we're going to go and give you the product at a discount, for instance. But it's just more of a freebie. Now, if the company went bankrupt tomorrow, we would have no right to any of the products that we asked for. And the reason for that is because you're pledging support for a company and you're getting a freebie in return. And so therefore that freebie has no theoretical value. So after the issues with Peachy and so forth, for instance, Kickstarter said you have to have a functional prototype before you can list a Kickstarter. It can't be an idea. It can't be a photograph or a drawing. It has to be a functional object so we can prove that we're not going to completely scam people. And with this, the project, the reviews are coming out and it's available out there. I think what they've done really is unethical, which is they shouldn't have gone and shipped this product to Amazon, to these other sellers, and then started to sell it at that same price zone. It was a really big mistake on their part. But have they defrauded us? No, because they just simply haven't delivered the product yet. And the reason I've been giving Sunlu in particular a bit of a break is because, they aren't a big company like Samsung and whatnot. So they may not have the funds up front to preliminarily ship this all out until they've received their money from Kickstarter. Now, again, that whole shipping to Amazon to sell, I can't explain why they made that decision, but I can tell you that, their intentions do seem to be good, and so I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt. It's unfortunate we're not getting them as soon as other people, but hang in there. I have a feeling they will come through.
And with that, we are at the end of our show for tonight. Thank you for all your questions. Thanks for sending them into this address. And I'm going to pull that up right now because when I don't pull this up, people don't know how to use it. So if you have questions for the First Layer, send them to questions@thefirstlayer.com and we will put them in the pool and we will read them on our next live stream. And we'll try and answer them. It also gives us time to go ahead and research your question if we don't have an immediate answer. So if it's a complicated problem like the one that we got earlier this evening that had 5 questions in a 2-page letter, we can't answer 5 questions. 1 or 2 questions is fine. 5 questions is too many. But you can also ask questions here in our chat, as you guys know, that join us each and every week. Please feel free to use the super chat. That really goes a long way to helping us to keep creating content for you, especially if you got something out of tonight. If we answered your question, it would be greatly appreciated, because this is what I do full time. Brian has a day job, and he's not available to do videos all the time or help me out on the other end of things. So we do appreciate you guys supporting the show, watching our episodes, sharing them with your friends. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Hit that subscribe button. Also hit the bell so you get notified. So when we put out a brand new episode or we're doing a live stream like we do every Saturday night, you get notified. So that is what I wanted to say, and now I'm going to bring back Brian here, and we are going to say goodnight for a Saturday night. I got to go upstairs and do some more resin printing. I've got to set up the resin printer for another run tonight. If you guys saw the photos that I did today, I reached my goal of actually getting the handles installed on top of my SLA printers or my DLP printers. And
super chat.
Can't forget that. Thank you very much to Mike Kirk. $5 for Mike Kirk. That goes all into the pool. It does help us out. Thank you very much, my friend. And I also started a pre-paint on a poison ivy statue from an artist by the name of Daedalus. And it is something that is going to be offered probably in the new year. It will not be offered as an STL. It will be a garage kit. So I'm doing the pre-painting. They've come to me to print, cast, and paint up the samples. And I'm going to paint up the samples, do all the artwork, and then you guys can... we may have 1 or 2 available for us to sell to you guys. Fully painted, fully assembled. So I believe they're going to be around 1/6 scale. So there's a lot of detail in these. And believe me when I tell you today I was doing this. Very, very, very close. Very close. I had my What's that?
You were toothpick painting.
Pretty close, yeah. Doing all the little ivy leaves. I don't have a brush thin enough to get into all those leaves, but I will be using a toothpick later on tomorrow. But with that said, guys, Brian, thanks for being with me again. And,
thanks again, Richard. Always glad to get out of the heat and to answer people's questions. The smoke was disgusting today.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
It looked like smog, and I'm deep outside the city. It was terrible. So the last
it was
video
horrible
I'm
up here.
right now, I've been shooting it outside. It has not been fun. So.
So until we see you guys on Wednesday, remember that the first layer is always your foundation to a great print. Till we see you next time.
Bye for now.